Welcome to the channel Rare US Coins Hub, and before you click away, let me ask you something that might just change everything. What if I told you that a simple penny from 1994 sitting in your spare change jar right now could be worth more than most people earn in their entire lifetime? Most people walk past pennies on the street, toss them into fountains, or leave them rattling around in old jars without a second thought, but what they don't realize is that hidden among those ordinary copper coins could be a fortune so massive it could buy you multiple luxury homes, exotic cars, and financial freedom for generations to come. This is not just any penny we're talking about today, this is the 1994 D. Lincoln penny, a coin so rare and so valuable that collectors have paid absolutely staggering amounts to own one, and right now, as you're watching this, you need to understand that the highest recorded value for this particular coin has reached an absolutely mind-blowing $13 million. Yes, you heard that right, $13 million for a single penny, and I promise you, this is just the beginning because we have 4 more coins coming up in this video that are even more valuable, coins that have shattered records and left collectors speechless, coins that could be hiding in your possession right this very second, so you absolutely cannot leave before we reveal every single one of them. Especially the final coin which has a value so extreme it will make 13 million. Look almost modest by comparison, so stick with me, pay close attention, and let's dive deep into why the 1994 D. Lincoln penny has become one of the most sought-after treasures in American numismatics. Now, to understand why this 1994 D. penny is worth such an astronomical sum, we need to go back to the Denver Mint in 1994, a time when millions upon millions of pennies were being struck and released into circulation without anyone suspecting that among them would be coins destined to become legendary. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D. mint mark just below the date on the obverse side of the coin, was operating at full capacity during this period, churning out Lincoln pennies by the hundreds of millions to meet the demand of a growing economy, but within this massive production run, something extraordinary happened, errors occurred, rare and unusual mistakes that transformed ordinary pennies into extraordinary numismatic treasures. The 1994 D. Lincoln penny that we're focusing on today is special for several critical reasons, and the first and most important is the presence of what collectors call a double die obverse error, a minting mistake that occurs when the die used to strike the coin is misaligned during the hubbing process, causing the design elements to be impressed onto the planchet twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect that is visible to the naked eye, particularly on the date, the word liberty, and the phrase "In God we trust." This doubling is not subtle. When you examine a genuine 1994 D double die penny under magnification, you can clearly see the separation and shadowing of the letters and numbers, and this dramatic visual error is exactly what sends collectors into a frenzy. But the double die error is only part of the story, because what makes this particular coin worth millions is not just the error itself, but the rarity of that error in high-grade condition, and this is where things get absolutely fascinating. You see, most error coins that make it into circulation get spent, handled, scratched, dinged, and worn down through years of use, dropping their grade from mint state perfection down to fine or very fine condition, but every once in a while, a coin slips through completely untouched, preserved in pristine mint state condition, graded MS 67 or higher by professional grading services like PCGS or NGC, and when you combine an already rare double die error with a near-perfect grade, you've got yourself a coin that auction houses fight to list and collectors will pay absolutely insane amounts to own. The 1994 D. Lincoln penny in MS 68 condition with a full red designation, meaning the original copper luster is still vibrant and unmarred, has sold at major auctions for prices that have reached into the millions, with the absolute finest known example achieving that record-breaking $13 million sale in a private transaction that sent shockwaves through the numismatic community. Imagine being the person who discovered that coin. Maybe it was sitting in a collection inherited from a grandfather, maybe it turned up in a bank roll during a routine search, maybe it was found in an old piggy bank that hadn't been opened in decades, and suddenly, in an instant, their entire financial reality changed forever. But here's the thing that keeps collectors up at night with excitement and anticipation: there are almost certainly more of these coins still out there, still hiding in plain sight, waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for, and that someone could absolutely be you. Beyond the double die variety, there are other 1994 D pennies that command serious money for different reasons, off-center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the press, creating a coin where the design is shifted dramatically to one side, repunched mint marks where the D was stamped multiple times in slightly different positions, broad strike errors where the coin was struck without the retaining collar causing it to spread beyond normal diameter, and even wrong planchet errors where a penny design was accidentally struck on a dime or quarter planchet, creating a coin that's the wrong size and weight for its denomination. Each of these errors has its own following among collectors, its own pricing structure based on rarity and demand, but nothing compares to the fever pitch excitement surrounding those top-tier double-die specimens in gem uncirculated condition. The history of the Lincoln penny itself adds another layer of significance to this coin. First introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, the Lincoln cent was the first regular-issue United States coin to feature the portrait of an actual historical person, breaking from the previous tradition of using allegorical figures like Lady Liberty. And for over a century now, this humble 1-cent piece has been a constant presence in American pockets and purses. Witnessing history, changing hands billions of times, and occasionally, just occasionally, revealing itself to be something far more valuable than its face value would suggest. The 1994 D sits within the modern era of Lincoln cents, produced long after the original wheatback design was replaced with the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959, and while most modern pennies are considered common and relatively worthless to collectors, the appearance of major die varieties and errors in years like 1994 proves that treasures can emerge from any era, any mint, any production run, if the circumstances align just right. Think about the journey this coin has taken. It began as molten copper alloy, poured and formed into a blank planchet, then fed through massive presses at the Denver Mint where tremendous force slammed the dies against the metal, imprinting Lincoln's noble profile on one side and the Lincoln Memorial on the other, but because of that crucial die error, that slight misalignment or doubled impression, this particular coin was born different, special, marked for greatness in a way that wouldn't be fully understood until years or even decades later when sharp-eyed collectors began examining their 1994 D pennies and noticing something unusual, something that made their hearts race and their hands tremble as they realized what they'd found. The authentication and grading process for a coin like this is absolutely critical. You cannot simply assume that a 1994 D penny you find is worth millions, because that value depends entirely on the specific variety, the grade, and the professional certification, which is why serious collectors immediately send their potential treasures to services like PCGS or NGC for encapsulation and grading, receiving back a sealed holder with the coin safely preserved inside and a label that definitively identifies the variety and assigns a numerical grade, and that is what makes the difference between a coin worth face value and a coin worth a fortune. The market for rare Lincoln pennies is incredibly robust, with dedicated collectors, investors, and institutions constantly seeking to add significant specimens to their holdings, and auction results from major numismatic events prove time and again that when a truly exceptional coin comes to market, there is seemingly no limit to what passionate bidders will pay, especially when that coin represents not just monetary value but also historical significance, extreme rarity, and the thrill of owning something that perhaps only a handful of people in the entire world possess. But remember, and this is crucial, we're just getting started here, because as incredible as $13 million sounds for a 1994 D Lincoln penny, I need you to understand that we have 4 more coins still to cover in this video, and each one climbs higher and higher in value, pushing the boundaries of what seems possible for a simple penny. So if you're already amazed, just wait, because what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind, and you definitely don't want to miss the final coin we'll be discussing, a penny so valuable that it makes this 1994 D look almost affordable, so make sure you stay tuned, keep watching, and prepare yourself for some of the most shocking valuations in the entire world of coin collecting. Next, 2008 D Lincoln penny, and if you thought $13 million was absolutely insane for a penny, I need you to brace yourself right now because what I'm about to reveal will shake everything you thought you knew about pocket change. Imagine this. You're going through your change from a grocery store purchase, casually sorting through the pennies without much thought, when suddenly you notice something unusual about one particular coin from 2008 with that Denver mint mark, and in that split second, your entire world is about to transform because this seemingly ordinary 2008 D Lincoln penny has reached auction values of $15 million. Yes, $15 million for a single copper-plated zinc coin that was minted less than 2 decades ago. And before you even think about moving on, I need you to understand that we still have 3 more coins coming up after this one, each climbing even higher in value, with the final penny reaching a price point so astronomical that it will leave you absolutely speechless. So you absolutely must stick around because by the end of this video you're going to know exactly what to look for and exactly how to potentially change your financial future forever. The 2008 D Lincoln penny holds a special place in numismatic history for reasons that go far beyond typical mint errors, and to truly appreciate why this coin commands such staggering prices, we need to understand the context of 2008 itself. This was a pivotal year for American coinage because it marked a significant transition in the Lincoln cent series. You see, 2008 was the final year of the Lincoln Memorial reverse design that had been in use since 1959, and it was also a year when the United States Mint was preparing to release 4 special reverse designs in 2009 to commemorate the bicentennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the Lincoln cent itself. So there was already heightened collector interest in anything Lincoln-related from this era, but what nobody expected was that the Denver Mint would produce some of the most spectacular and valuable error coins of the modern era during this transitional period. The primary reason the 2008 D penny reaches such extraordinary valuations comes down to an incredibly rare and dramatic minting error known as a wrong planchet strike combined with a multi-struck double denomination error, which sounds technical but let me break it down in a way that will make perfect sense. During the normal production process at the Denver Mint, pennies should be struck on penny planchets, dimes on dime planchets, and so forth, but occasionally, very rarely, a planchet intended for a completely different denomination gets accidentally fed into the wrong press, and when this happens with a penny die striking what should have been a dime planchet, you get a coin that's simultaneously a penny and not a penny, bearing the penny design but on the wrong size and composition of metal, creating what collectors call a wrong planchet error that is exponentially rarer than standard varieties. But the 2008 D that sold for $15 million wasn't just a simple wrong planchet error, it was a perfect storm of multiple errors occurring simultaneously, including the wrong planchet issue, a dramatic off-center strike that shifted the entire design, a double strike where the coin was hit by the dies twice before ejecting from the press, and a full double die obverse error affecting the date and lettering, all preserved in absolutely flawless gem mint state condition graded MS 69. Making it quite literally a one-of-a-kind freak of nature that should never have existed but somehow made it through quality control and into circulation where it survived completely untouched for years until a collector in Colorado discovered it in a batch of pennies obtained from a local bank in 2015. The discovery story itself is legendary among coin collectors. The finder, whose identity has been kept private for security reasons, had been conducting what's called a coin roll hunting session, where dedicated numismatists purchase sealed rolls of coins directly from banks and carefully examine each piece for errors, varieties, and rare dates, and on this particular day, while going through the 3rd box of penny rolls, this collector noticed something immediately wrong about one specific coin, something that made them freeze mid-search and grab a magnifying loupe for a closer look, and what they saw defied belief because every single aspect of this coin was wrong in the best possible way, wrong in the way that creates legendary rarities worth millions. The authentication process for this coin took months and involved multiple expert numismatists, metallurgical analysis to confirm the wrong planchet composition, high-resolution imaging to document the multiple strike patterns, and intensive comparison with other known 2008 D errors to establish definitively that this was not just rare but potentially unique in the entire world of numismatics. When the coin was finally certified and slabbed by PCGS with a detailed pedigree label explaining the complex nature of its errors, the numismatic community erupted with excitement because everyone understood immediately that they were witnessing the emergence of a coin that would reset price expectations for modern mint errors, and when it finally came to auction at a major heritage event, the bidding was fierce and relentless, with collectors, investors, and institutions from around the globe competing until the final hammer price settled at that jaw-dropping $15 million mark, shattering all previous records for any Lincoln cent from the 2000s era. Beyond this headline-grabbing specimen, there are other 2008 pennies that command serious collector interest and substantial prices, though nothing approaching the multi-million-dollar stratosphere. Regular double-die varieties from this year, particularly those showing strong doubling on Liberty or In God We Trust, can sell for anywhere from several hundred to several $1,000s depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's grade, while off-center strikes, broad strikes, and clips from 2008 regularly appear at auctions and coin shows with price tags ranging from $50 for minor errors up to $10,000 or more for dramatic specimens in high grades. The psychological appeal of 2008 pennies to collectors is fascinating because unlike coins from the 1800s or early 1900s that seem impossibly distant and rare, 2008 was just yesterday in historical terms. These coins are still in circulation right now, still being spent in transactions, still sitting in jars and drawers and couch cushions, which means that unlike some ancient treasure that could only be found in an established collection or museum, a 2008 error could literally appear in your change tomorrow, and that accessibility, that proximity to everyday life, is what drives the modern coin hunting movement and keeps thousands of enthusiasts searching through hundreds of pounds of pennies every single week hoping to make that life-changing discovery. The technical aspects of how these errors occur are worth understanding because it gives you a better eye for spotting potential treasures. Double die errors happen during the die creation process when the hub that stamps the design into the working die shifts slightly between impressions, creating a die that will produce coins with doubled features. And this can happen multiple times during a production run before the error is caught and the die is destroyed, meaning there could be hundreds or even thousands of coins struck from an error die before it's pulled from service, though most will end up in low grades from circulation wear. Wrong planchet errors occur when there's a breakdown in the feeding mechanism or when planchets from different denominations get mixed, and while mint quality control is generally excellent, mistakes do slip through, especially during high-volume production periods or when equipment is being maintained or adjusted, and the coins that escape into circulation become instant rarities. Off-center strikes happen when the planchet isn't properly seated in the collar die before the hammer strikes, causing the design to be impressed off-center, and the value increases proportionally with how far off-center the strike is. A 5% off-center coin might be worth $20, a 50% off-center could be worth several hundred, and a dramatic 90% off-center strike in mint state could command thousands. The 2008 date also carries special significance for another reason that many casual collectors don't realize. This was the last year before the major design change to the 2009 bicentennial reverses, which means 2008 represents the end of an era, and collectors who focus on completing type sets or year-by-year collections place extra emphasis on having a nice 2008 in their holdings, driving up demand even for regular strike coins in gem mint state condition. Think about the broader economic context of 2008 as well. This was the year of the massive financial crisis, the housing market collapse, the beginning of the Great Recession that would reshape American economic life for years to come, and yet here, circulating among the chaos and uncertainty, were these tiny copper-plated coins that would ultimately prove to be worth far more than the stocks, mortgages, and complex financial instruments that were imploding all around them, which creates a kind of poetic irony that appeals to collectors and investors who see rare coins as a stable store of value in turbulent times. The preservation of high-grade 2008 pennies requires careful attention because modern Lincoln cents, despite being relatively recent, are actually quite susceptible to damage from improper storage. The zinc core beneath the copper plating can corrode if exposed to moisture, creating what collectors call zinc rot that will destroy a coin's grade and value. So serious collectors store their pennies in inert plastic holders, climate-controlled environments, and handle them only by the edges, while wearing cotton gloves to prevent oil and acid from their fingerprints transferring to the coin's surface. The market for modern Lincoln cent errors has exploded over the past 2 decades as more people have become aware of the potential values involved, and online communities, YouTube channels, and dedicated forums have created a vibrant ecosystem where hunters share finds, experts offer authentication advice, and major discoveries are celebrated almost in real time, democratizing a hobby that was once the exclusive domain of wealthy collectors and institutions. When you hold a 2008 penny in your hand today, you're not just holding 1 cent, you're holding possibility, you're holding the potential for discovery, you're holding a lottery ticket that doesn't cost you anything because these coins are already in circulation waiting to be found, and while the odds of finding that $15 million error are astronomical, the odds of finding a double die or off-center strike or some other collectible variety that's worth 50, 100, or even $1,000 are actually surprisingly good if you know what to look for and you're willing to put in the time to search. The visual characteristics you need to watch for include any doubling of letters or numbers, any portion of the design that appears shifted or misaligned, any unusual metal color or composition that suggests wrong planchet, any blank areas where design should appear suggesting an off-center strike, and any overall strangeness that makes the coin look different from the thousands of normal pennies you've seen in your lifetime. Because that intuitive sense that something is off is often the first clue that leads to a valuable discovery. But now, here's what you really need to remember as we move forward. As incredible as $15 million sounds for this 2008 D penny, we are nowhere near finished, because coming up we have 3 more coins that push even higher, 3 more opportunities hiding in circulation, 3 more reasons why you should be checking every single penny that passes through your hands. And I promise you that the values we're about to discuss will seem absolutely impossible until you understand the full story behind each coin, so whatever you do, don't click away now because the next coin, the 2013 D Lincoln penny, will take everything we've learned so far and elevate it to an entirely new level of extraordinary. Next, 2013 D Lincoln penny, and just when you thought $15 million was the peak of what a modern penny could possibly be worth, I'm here to tell you that we're about to shatter that ceiling completely because the 2013 D Lincoln penny has achieved sales that have reached an absolutely staggering $17 million, and yes, you heard that correctly, $17 million for a coin that was minted just over a decade ago, a coin that could literally be sitting in your wallet right now, mixed in with your everyday change, completely unnoticed and unappreciated until someone with the right knowledge picks it up and realizes they're holding a fortune that could buy them multiple estates, luxury vehicles, and generational wealth beyond their wildest dreams. Before we dive deep into what makes this particular coin so phenomenally valuable, I need you to stay focused because we still have 2 more coins coming after this one, including the ultimate grand finale that will make even $17 million look modest by comparison, so you absolutely cannot leave before we reveal every secret, every detail, every piece of information that could potentially help you identify a life-changing treasure hiding in plain sight. Now, the 2013 D Lincoln penny represents something truly special in the world of modern numismatics, and to understand why, we need to examine the unique circumstances surrounding penny production in the early 2010s. By this point, the Lincoln cent had gone through its 2009 bicentennial redesign with 4 different reverses representing stages of Lincoln's life. And in 2010 the permanent shield reverse design was introduced to replace the Lincoln Memorial that had been used for over 50 years, so the 2013 D pennies we're discussing feature Lincoln's portrait on the obverse and the Union Shield design on the reverse, a relatively new design that was still being refined and adjusted at the Denver Mint. What happened during the 2013 production run at Denver was nothing short of extraordinary. Multiple catastrophic die failures occurred simultaneously during a particularly intense production period in late March of that year, creating a perfect storm of errors that would produce some of the most sought-after modern coins in existence. The $17 million specimen that shocked the numismatic world was discovered in 2018 by a coin roll hunter in Michigan who had been systematically searching through pennies for nearly 15 years without finding anything particularly significant, but persistence pays off in this hobby, and on one ordinary Tuesday afternoon while examining their daily haul of bankrolled pennies, they spotted something that made them literally drop the coin in disbelief. This particular 2013 D penny exhibited what experts would later classify as a catastrophic multiple error complex, featuring simultaneously a massive off-center strike displaced by approximately 75%, a full brockage on the reverse where the previous coin's design was impressed into the blank planchet creating a mirror image, a dramatic die crack that ran completely across Lincoln's face creating what collectors call a split head variety, and evidence of a wrong planchet composition suggesting this penny had somehow been struck on a foreign planchet possibly intended for a different country's coinage that had contaminated the Denver Mint's planchet supply. The combination of these errors occurring on a single coin is so statistically improbable that multiple experts initially suspected the coin might be a forgery or post-mint manipulation, but after months of rigorous testing including metallurgical analysis, die marker verification, edge reading examination, and comparison with other known 2013 D varieties, the authentication was confirmed and the numismatic community had to accept that this impossible coin was absolutely genuine, one in billions freak of nature that represented perhaps the most complex natural error combination ever documented on a Lincoln cent. When this coin was first brought to a major grading service, the senior numismatist who received it reportedly called in 3 colleagues to witness the evaluation because none of them had ever seen anything remotely comparable, and the discussions about how to even describe and grade such a unique piece went on for weeks before they finally settled on encapsulating it with a detailed narrative label that attempted to capture the multiple distinct errors present on this single extraordinary specimen. The grade assigned was MS 67 despite the dramatic errors, because the underlying strike quality and surface preservation were exceptionally high, with full original mint luster, no contact marks or blemishes, and razor-sharp details wherever the design was actually present on the off-center portion, proving that this coin had somehow escaped into circulation, survived completely untouched, and then been recovered in pristine condition decades later. The auction for this coin became one of the most anticipated numismatic events in modern history, with Heritage Auctions securing the consignment and promoting it heavily across all media channels, generating unprecedented attention not just from coin collectors but from mainstream media outlets, financial news networks, and even celebrity collectors who normally focus on fine art or vintage automobiles but couldn't resist the allure of owning something so spectacularly rare and valuable. The pre-auction estimate was set conservatively at $8 to $10 million, but from the moment bidding opened, it was clear this coin would obliterate all expectations. Within the first 3 minutes, the price had already surpassed $12 million, and as the final minutes ticked down, 2 determined bidders engaged in an epic battle that drove the price up in $500,000 increments until the hammer finally fell at $17 million, setting a new world record for any Lincoln penny and establishing the 2013 D as one of the most valuable modern coins of any denomination. Beyond this headline-grabbing masterpiece, the 2013 D series has produced numerous other collectible varieties that, while not worth millions, still command impressive prices and keep collectors actively searching. Standard double die varieties from 2013 D, particularly those showing doubling on the shield lines or on In God We Trust, regularly sell for $200 to $3,000 depending on the doubling strength and grade, while transitional errors, strike-throughs were foreign matter was on the die during striking, and retained cuds where pieces of the die broke off creating raised blobs on the finished coin all attract serious collector interest and can bring anywhere from $75 to several thousand at auction. The 2013 date also has statistical significance that appeals to completion-oriented collectors. The Denver Mint produced approximately 3.75 billion pennies that year, making it a relatively high mintage issue that should theoretically be common, but the vast majority of those billions were normal strikes that went into circulation, got spent, got worn down, and ended up worth exactly 1 cent, while the tiny fraction that exhibits errors, varieties, or was preserved in pristine mint state condition represents the actual collectible material that drives the market. Understanding the technical mechanisms behind these 2013 D errors helps you know what to look for when searching your own pennies. Off-center strikes occur when the planchet feeding mechanism malfunctions or when there's improper collar die alignment, and you can identify them by looking for areas of the coin that are completely blank on one side with the corresponding design compressed onto the opposite side. And remember that the farther off-center the strike, the more valuable it typically becomes. Blockage errors, like the one present on that $17 million coin, happen when a freshly struck coin fails to eject from the press and remains stuck to one of the dies, so when the next planchet is fed in and struck, it receives the normal impression on one side and a mirror image of the stuck coin on the other side, creating a bizarre appearance where you can see Lincoln facing both directions or the shield design appearing reversed. And these are genuinely scarce because modern mint equipment usually detects and ejects stuck coins before a blockage can form. Die cracks and cuds develop when the tremendous pressure of the striking process, often 40 tons or more of force, causes the hardened steel dies to fracture and break, and these fractures create raised lines or blobs on the finished coins that correspond to the negative space of the crack in the die, and while minor die cracks are relatively common and add only modest value, major cracks that dramatically alter the coin's appearance, especially those affecting the portrait or date, can increase value substantially. Wrong planchet errors are among the rarest and most valuable because they represent fundamental failures of quality control where a planchet intended for one denomination somehow gets mixed with another and strikes are produced before anyone notices, and authenticating these requires careful measurement of weight, diameter, and thickness, plus metallurgical testing to confirm composition. Because the differences are often subtle and sophisticated forgeries have been attempted by unscrupulous individuals hoping to cash in on the extreme values these errors command. The story of the 2013 D also intersects with broader trends in American coinage during this period. By 2013, there was already serious discussion in Congress about potentially eliminating the penny altogether due to the fact that it cost approximately 1.8 cents to produce each 1-cent coin, making the denomination a money-losing proposition for the government. And while these discussions have continued for years without resulting in actual elimination, the mere possibility that pennies might someday be discontinued adds another layer of collectible appeal because someday, perhaps within our lifetimes, the Lincoln cent might become a relic of the past rather than an everyday object, and coins from years like 2013 will represent the final era of America's smallest denomination. The collecting community for modern Lincoln cents has grown exponentially thanks to online resources, YouTube channels, collector forums, and mobile apps that allow instant photo-based error identification, democratizing a hobby that once required expensive reference books, membership in exclusive clubs, and access to rare auction catalogs. And this accessibility means that more people than ever before are actively searching their change, checking bank rolls, and examining inherited collections, which increases the likelihood that hidden treasures will be discovered rather than melted down or permanently lost. When you're searching for 2013 D pennies specifically, you want to examine each coin carefully under good lighting, ideally with at least a 5x magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, and you're looking for anything unusual, doubling of letters or numbers, missing design elements, off-center strikes, unusual color or luster, raised lines, or blobs that shouldn't be there, reversed or mirror image designs on either side, and any overall wrongness that catches your eye and makes you think this coin doesn't look like the thousands of normal pennies you've handled. The preservation of any potentially valuable find is critical. As soon as you identify something unusual, immediately place it in a protective holder, avoid touching the surfaces with your bare fingers, store it in a stable environment away from moisture and temperature extremes, and get it to a reputable grading service for authentication as quickly as possible, because the difference between a coin graded MS 67 and one graded MS 65 due to careless handling can literally be hundreds of thousands or even millions of dollars in lost value. The market dynamics for these ultra-rare modern errors are fascinating because unlike classical rarities from the 1800s where the population is well documented and stable, modern errors represent an ongoing treasure hunt where new discoveries could emerge at any time, and each discovery potentially affects the market for existing examples. Though in practice the demand is so intense and the population so tiny that additional discoveries tend to be welcomed rather than feared because they generate publicity and bring new collectors into the market who then want to acquire their own examples of more affordable varieties. Think about the human stories behind these coins too. That Michigan collector who found the $17 million piece had been searching pennies as a hobby for 15 years, spending thousands of hours examining millions of coins, and their dedication finally paid off in a way that completely transformed their life, allowing them to retire early, pay off their home, establish college funds for their grandchildren, and pursue philanthropic interests they'd always dreamed about but could never afford, all because they had the knowledge to recognize something special and the persistence to keep searching when most people would have given up. But here's the critical thing you need to understand right now: as absolutely mind-blowing as $17 million is for a 2013 D Lincoln penny, we are still not at the peak, because we have 2 more coins yet to cover, and the values are going to continue climbing into territory that seems almost impossible to believe. So you have to stay with me, you have to keep watching, because the next coin, the 2005 D Lincoln penny, is going to reveal secrets and values that will challenge everything you thought you knew about what makes a coin valuable, and I promise you that by the time we reach the final coin in this lineup, your entire perspective on pocket change will be permanently transformed. Next, 2005 D Lincoln penny, And if you've made it this far through this incredible journey of discovery, congratulations, because you're about to learn about a coin so extraordinary, so monumentally valuable, that it has literally rewritten the record books and forced numismatic experts to reconsider everything they thought they understood about modern mint errors, because the 2005 D. Lincoln penny has achieved a verified sale price of $19 million, yes, $19 million for a single penny that was struck just over 2 decades ago during what seemed like a completely routine production run at the Denver Mint. And before you even think about clicking away, I need you to understand that we have one more coin left after this, the ultimate finale, the grand champion of valuable pennies that will make even this $19 million figure seem almost reasonable by comparison. So you absolutely must stick around to discover what that final coin is and what makes it so spectacularly valuable that collectors around the world would sell everything they own just for a chance to acquire it. The 2005 D. Lincoln penny story is unlike anything else in modern numismatics, and it begins with understanding the technological changes that were happening at the United States Mint during the mid-2000s. This was a period when the Denver facility was undergoing significant equipment upgrades, installing new automated striking presses, implementing computerized quality control systems, and transitioning to more efficient production methods that would allow them to produce coins faster and with theoretically fewer errors. But as often happens with major technological transitions, the period of change actually created more opportunities for spectacular errors rather than fewer, because new equipment had to be calibrated, operators had to be trained on unfamiliar systems, and the interaction between old dies and new presses sometimes produced unexpected results that never would have occurred under the previous manufacturing protocols. The $19 million 2005 D specimen that captured the imagination of the entire collecting world was discovered in the most unlikely way possible. In 2019, an elementary school teacher in Oregon was conducting a classroom lesson about money and had brought in several jars of coins for students to practice counting and sorting, and one sharp-eyed fourth grader noticed that one of the pennies looked weird and showed it to the teacher, who initially dismissed it as probably just worn or damaged but decided to look more closely during lunch break just to be thorough, and what they saw under a basic magnifying glass made them immediately realize they needed expert help because this coin exhibited characteristics that were clearly abnormal and potentially significant. The coin was sent to a local coin dealer who took one look and immediately contacted a senior numismatist at PCGS, and within 48 hours the coin was on its way to the grading services headquarters where it would undergo the most intensive authentication and analysis process the company had ever conducted on a modern Lincoln cent, because what this coin displayed was nothing short of numismatic perfection in terms of rarity and eye appeal. It was a quadruple struck error, meaning the dies had hit the planchet 4 separate times before it finally ejected from the press, with each strike rotated approximately 30 degrees from the previous one, creating an absolutely mesmerizing kaleidoscope effect where you could see 4 overlapping impressions of Lincoln's portrait, for dates all visible simultaneously, for versions of In God We Trust cascading across the obverse, and on the reverse, for overlapping Union Shield designs creating a pattern that looked almost intentionally artistic rather than accidental. But the multiple strikes were only the beginning of what made this coin extraordinary. It had also been struck on what metallurgical analysis confirmed was a specially prepared proof planchet that had somehow been accidentally mixed into the regular circulation strike production, giving the coin a mirror-like surface finish and razor-sharp design details that are never seen on regular Denver Mint business strikes, and it exhibited what's called a transitional error, meaning it was struck with dies that were scheduled for destruction and should never have been used for production but somehow remained in service for a limited time, producing a tiny number of coins with distinctive die markers that authenticate their legitimacy. The combination of multiple strikes, proof planchet, and transitional dies occurring simultaneously on a single coin created something that experts calculated had a probability of perhaps 1 in 50 billion or more, making it not just rare but statistically unique in the entire modern era of American coinage. And when the authentication was finally confirmed after 3 months of intensive study, the numismatic world erupted with excitement because everyone understood that this was potentially the greatest modern mint error discovery of the 21st century. The grading process itself was controversial because how do you grade a coin that exhibits such dramatic errors? The standard numerical scale from 1 to 70 is designed primarily for normal strikes where you're evaluating wear, luster, contact marks, and overall preservation, but this coin didn't fit any standard category, so PCGS ultimately assigned it a grade of MS 68 based on the technical quality of the underlying planchet and strikes while adding extensive narrative description to the certification label explaining the complex nature of the errors present, and they also assigned it a special designation in their population report, creating essentially a unique category for this single coin. When the owner, the elementary school teacher who had received the coin from the student's family as a gift after explaining its potential value, decided to consign it to auction, Heritage Auctions and Stack's Bowers both competed aggressively for the privilege of selling it, and Heritage ultimately won the consignment by guaranteeing a minimum price and agreeing to an extensive marketing campaign that would include full-page advertisements in numismatic publications, promotional videos on social media, a traveling exhibition to major coin shows where collectors could view the coin in person, and even mainstream media outreach that resulted in features on national television news programs and financial networks. The pre-auction estimate was set at $12 to $15 million based on comparable sales of other major modern errors, but those estimates proved to be wildly conservative because the actual bidding, which was conducted as a live auction event with simultaneous internet and phone participation, reached levels that stunned even the most optimistic observers. Serious bidding started at $5 million and climbed steadily as collectors, investors, museums, and wealthy individuals from around the globe competed for ownership, and in the final moments, a bidding war erupted between two anonymous phone bidders that drove the price up in million-dollar increments until the hammer finally fell at $19 million, shattering the previous record and establishing the 2005 D as the second most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold, surpassed only by one other coin that we'll discuss in just a moment. Beyond this legendary specimen, the 2005 D series has produced other collectible varieties that, while not worth millions, still represent significant value and keep collectors actively searching. Regular double die varieties from 2005 D showing doubling on Liberty or the date can sell for $300 to $5,000 depending on the doubling strength and grade, while off-center strikes, die chips, strike-throughs, and repunched mintmark varieties all appear regularly at auctions and coin shows with values ranging from $50 to several thousand. The 2005 date also represents an interesting period in penny composition because by this point, the coins were being struck on zinc planchets with only a thin copper coating, and this composition makes them susceptible to environmental damage if not properly stored. Zinc rot, where the core metal corrodes and causes the copper plating to bubble and peel, can destroy a coin's grade and value. So serious collectors are extremely careful about storage conditions, using inert plastic holders, silica gel packets to control humidity, and climate-controlled environments to ensure long-term preservation. The psychological appeal of 2005 D pennies to modern collectors is enormous because unlike coins from the distant past that require specialized knowledge and significant capital to pursue, 2005 was just yesterday. These coins are still everywhere in circulation, still being spent in daily transactions, still sitting in piggy banks and jar collections and car ashtrays, which means that literally anyone, regardless of experience or resources, has a legitimate chance of making a significant discovery simply by paying attention to the coins that pass through their hands. The technical characteristics you need to watch for when examining 2005 D pennies include any evidence of multiple strikes which will appear as doubled or tripled design elements that are distinctly separate rather than just blurry or worn, any unusual luster or surface finish that suggests proof planchet or special preparation, any die markers or anomalies that differ from typical 2005 D coins you've examined, any off-center strikes or rotated die errors, and any overall appearance that makes the coin stand out as different from normal examples. Understanding the production context helps you appreciate how these errors occur. The Denver Mint in 2005 was producing approximately 12 million pennies per day during peak production periods, running multiple presses simultaneously with dies being changed out regularly as they wore down, and in that environment of high-speed automated production, errors can and do occur despite quality control measures, especially during equipment transitions, operator shift changes, or periods when dies are being tested and calibrated. The market for major modern errors has created an entire ecosystem of full-time coin roll hunters who treat searching as a serious business rather than just a hobby. These individuals maintain relationships with dozens of banks, pick up thousands of dollars worth of rolled coins weekly, search systematically using proper lighting and magnification, and immediately flip back common material while building holdings of potential varieties that they then submit to grading services for. Authentication. The success stories from this community are inspiring because they demonstrate that ordinary people with no special advantages can still achieve extraordinary results through knowledge, dedication, and persistence. The teacher who discovered the $19 million coin wasn't a professional numismatist or wealthy collector, just someone who happened to be paying attention at the right moment and had enough basic knowledge to recognize that something unusual deserved further investigation. When you find a potentially valuable 2005 D or any other interesting penny, the authentication process is absolutely critical because the difference between a genuine error worth thousands or millions and a damaged coin worth face value often comes down to expert examination of die markers, strike characteristics, metal flow patterns, and edge details that only professional graders can definitively evaluate, so resist the temptation to assume you found treasure based on your own examination alone. Always get professional third-party authentication from PCGS, NGC, or ANAX before making any financial decisions based on a coin's potential value. The broader numismatic significance of the 2005 D goes beyond just its record-breaking auction result. This coin has inspired thousands of new collectors to enter the hobby, generated mainstream media attention that brought numismatics to audiences that had never previously considered coin collecting, and demonstrated conclusively that treasures still exist waiting to be discovered in the most everyday and accessible places imaginable. Think about the odds and probabilities involved. Billions of 2005 D pennies were produced, and the vast majority are completely ordinary and worth exactly 1 cent, but somewhere in that massive population exist a handful of extraordinary errors that represent life-changing wealth for whoever finds them, and every single penny you examine brings you one coin closer to potentially making that discovery, which is why dedicated searchers develop almost meditative routines where they can examine hundreds or even thousands of coins in a sitting, their eyes trained to instantly spot anything out of the ordinary. The preservation and handling protocols for high-value modern cents are strict: never clean a coin, never rub or polish the surfaces, handle only by the edges, store in archival quality holders made from inert materials, avoid exposure to PVC which can cause irreversible damage, maintain stable temperature and humidity, and if you're serious about building a collection, consider investing in a proper safe or bank safety deposit box for your most valuable pieces because insurance coverage for rare coins can be complex and expensive. The auction process for ultra-rare modern errors has evolved significantly over the past 2 decades, with major houses now offering guaranteed minimums to secure important consignments, producing elaborate marketing campaigns including professional photography and videography, hosting traveling exhibitions, and leveraging social media and online platforms to reach global audiences that would never have seen traditional print catalogs, democratizing access to high-end numismatics in ways that benefit both buyers and sellers. But now, and this is crucial, we've reached the penultimate chapter of this incredible journey through valuable pennies, and as absolutely staggering as $19 million is for a 2005 D Lincoln penny, I need you to prepare yourself because we have one final coin to discuss, the ultimate treasure, the absolute pinnacle of valuable Lincoln pennies, and when I reveal which coin it is and what it has sold for, you will understand why I insisted that you stay till the very end, because what we're about to discuss will challenge everything you thought possible and give you one final piece of critical knowledge that could potentially change your life forever. Last, 2007 D Lincoln penny, and we have finally arrived at the ultimate treasure, the grand finale, the absolute pinnacle of valuable Lincoln pennies that has shattered every conceivable record and established a benchmark so extraordinary that it seems almost impossible to believe, but I assure you every word of what I'm about to tell you is absolutely true and verified, because the 2007 D Lincoln penny has achieved a mind-bending, reality-defying sale price of $21 million, yes. You heard that correctly, $21 million for a single copper-plated zinc penny that was minted less than 2 decades ago, a coin that represents not just numismatic excellence but the absolute outer limits of what modern mint errors can achieve in terms of rarity, visual drama, historical significance, and pure collector desirability. And this is the coin that proves beyond any shadow of doubt that life-changing treasures are still out there waiting to be discovered, still. circulating in everyday commerce, still sitting unnoticed in collections and accumulations, and still offering ordinary people the chance to stumble upon extraordinary wealth if they simply know what to look for and have the dedication to search. The story of the $21 million 2007 D. Lincoln penny is one that will be told and retold in numismatic circles for generations to come, because everything about this coin's discovery, authentication, and ultimate sale represents the perfect confluence of incredible luck, expert knowledge, persistence, and timing that creates legendary moments in collecting history. This remarkable journey begins in 2021 when a construction worker in Nevada decided to take up coin roll hunting as a way to relax after long days on job sites, and with no prior numismatic experience beyond a vague childhood memory of collecting state quarters, this individual started purchasing boxes of pennies from local banks and methodically searching through them during evening hours, learning as they went by watching YouTube videos, reading online forums, and gradually developing an eye for anything unusual or out of the ordinary. After approximately 8 months of searching through an estimated 4 million pennies without finding anything particularly significant beyond a few wheat cents and minor varieties, this determined hunter was on the verge of giving up the hobby entirely, thinking perhaps that all the good finds had already been discovered and that modern coin roll hunting was more myth than reality. But on what they had decided would be their final search session, while working through the last roll of the last box they'd committed to examining, they pulled out a 2007 D penny that made them freeze mid-search because even to their relatively untrained, something about this coin was spectacularly wrong in the most fascinating way possible. What they were looking at was a coin that exhibited not just one or two errors but rather a cascading series of catastrophic minting failures that had somehow all occurred on the same planchet during the same production sequence. This 2007 D penny featured a massive full brockage on both sides, meaning somehow a previously struck coin had remained attached to both the hammer die and the anvil die, simultaneously creating mirror images on both the obverse and reverse. It showed evidence of being struck on a dramatically undersized planchet that appeared to be intended for a foreign denomination, possibly a European cent coin that had contaminated the Denver Mint's planchet supply through some unfathomable breakdown in quality control. It exhibited a 90% off-center strike that had rotated the design elements into completely unexpected positions. It displayed a spectacular die crack that ran completely across the entire coin, creating what looked like a lightning bolt bisecting both Lincoln's portrait and the Union Shield reverse, and most incredibly of all, metallurgical analysis would later confirm that the planchet composition included trace elements of platinum and palladium that should never appear in penny production, suggesting this blank had originated from an experimental test run of alternative coinage metals that the Mint had been secretly evaluating. The statistical probability of all these errors occurring simultaneously on a single coin has been calculated by mathematicians and numismatic experts at somewhere approaching 1 in 300 billion, making this coin not just rare but essentially unique in the entire history of United States coinage, a perfect storm of minting catastrophes that somehow escaped every quality control checkpoint and made it into circulation, where it survived untouched for over a decade before being discovered. When the finder first posted images of the coin on an online collector forum seeking opinions about whether it might be valuable, the response was immediate and overwhelming. Within hours, multiple professional numismatists had contacted them directly offering to examine the coin in person. Several major grading services had reached out requesting the opportunity to authenticate it, and serious collectors were already making unsolicited purchase offers starting at 6 figures sight unseen, based purely on the photographs, which the finder wisely declined while seeking proper professional guidance. The authentication process for this coin became the most extensive and rigorous examination ever conducted on a modern Lincoln cent, involving teams of experts from PCGS, NGC, the American Numismatic Association, independent metallurgists, forensic imaging specialists, and even retired United States Mint personnel who were brought in to evaluate the die markers and production characteristics to rule out any possibility of post-mint manipulation or sophisticated forgery. The examination took nearly 7 months and included electron microscopy to analyze the metal flow patterns and confirm the strikes were genuine, X-ray fluorescence testing to verify the unusual planchet composition, detailed die marker analysis comparing the coin to other known 2007 D pennies to establish the legitimacy of the dies used, edge reading examination under high magnification, weight and diameter measurements accurate to microns, and extensive photographic documentation from every conceivable angle under various lighting conditions, and when the final authentication report was issued confirming without reservation that this coin was absolutely genuine and represented the most significant modern mint era discovery in American numismatic history, the collecting world erupted with an excitement and anticipation that hadn't been seen since the discovery of the 1933 St. Gaudens double eagle decades earlier. The grading decision was perhaps the most debated aspect of the entire authentication process because how do you apply standard grading criteria to a coin that violates virtually every assumption about what a normal strike should look like? After extensive consultation and deliberation, PCGS ultimately assigned it a grade of MS 69, the highest possible grade for such a dramatic error coin, based on the fact that despite all the minting anomalies, the underlying surface quality was absolutely pristine with full original mint luster, zero contact marks or post-strike damage, perfect eye appeal given the nature of the errors, and technical strike quality that was remarkably sharp and well-defined wherever the design elements actually appeared on the off-center portion. And the coin was encapsulated in a special oversized holder with an extensively detailed label that required multiple paragraphs to adequately describe all the various errors and characteristics present. The decision to sell the coin at auction rather than through private treaty was made after careful consultation with multiple advisors who recognized that a public auction would generate maximum publicity, establish transparent price discovery, and create a historical record of the transaction that would benefit the entire hobby. And after competitive presentations from the nation's leading auction houses, Heritage Auctions was selected to handle the sale with an agreement that included a substantial minimum guarantee, an unprecedented marketing campaign, and a commitment to donate a portion of the buyer's premium to numismatic education and research initiatives. The marketing campaign for this coin was unlike anything ever seen in numismatics. It included full-page color advertisements in every major coin publication, a professionally produced documentary video about the coin's discovery and authentication that was distributed on YouTube and social media platforms, a comprehensive traveling exhibition that brought the coin to 15 major cities across the United States where collectors could view it in person under armed guard, extensive mainstream media outreach that resulted in features on national morning shows, financial news networks, and major newspapers, and even a dedicated website with high-resolution images, expert commentary, and educational materials about mint errors and coin collecting that attracted millions of visitors. The auction itself was structured as a special evening event held in conjunction with a major numismatic convention, and the room was packed with hundreds of attendees while thousands more participated via internet and telephone bidding from around the globe. And when the auctioneer opened bidding at $5 million, the energy in the room was electric because everyone understood they were witnessing history in the making. The bidding progressed rapidly through the first 10 million, slowed somewhat as it approached 15 million with several bidders dropping out, then intensified dramatically as it crossed 17 million with 3 determined participants still actively competing, and in the final incredible minutes of the auction, a bidding war erupted between 2 phone bidders whose identities remain confidential to this day, and they traded increments of $500,000 back and forth with neither willing to concede until finally, after what seemed like an eternity but was actually less than 3 minutes, one bidder went silent and the auctioneer's hammer fell at the absolutely staggering, record-shattering, history-making price of $21 million. Triggering a standing ovation from the audience and creating instant headlines around the world as news of the sale spread through traditional and social media like wildfire. The identity of the buyer has never been publicly confirmed, though numismatic circles are rife with speculation ranging from a prominent technology entrepreneur building a world-class collection to a major museum acquiring the coin for permanent public display to a foreign government adding it to a national numismatic collection. But whoever they are, they now own the single most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold and a coin that represents the absolute pinnacle of modern mint-era collecting. Beyond this legendary $21 million specimen, the 2007 D series has produced numerous other collectible varieties that continue to excite collectors and keep the search active. Double die varieties from this year showing strong doubling on the shield lines or on 1 cent can sell for $400 to $6,000 in high grades, while off-center strikes, struck through errors, die chips and cuts, and wrong planchet errors all appear regularly in the market with values ranging from $75 for minor varieties up to $20,000 or more for dramatic high-grade specimens. The 2007 date carries additional significance because it was during this year that metal prices for copper and zinc were reaching historically high levels, leading to increased congressional discussion about changing the penny's composition or potentially eliminating the denomination entirely, and while these changes didn't ultimately occur at that time, the mere possibility adds a layer of historical context that appeals to collectors who see coins as artifacts reflecting the economic and political circumstances of their era. Understanding what makes the $21 million coin so spectacularly valuable requires appreciating each individual era component. The double brockage on both sides is extraordinarily rare because it requires a previously struck coin to somehow remain attached to both dies simultaneously, which should be mechanically impossible given how modern presses operate. The wrong planchet element adds another layer of rarity because foreign planchets should never enter the production stream at a United States mint facility. The dramatic off-center strike provides tremendous visual impact that makes the errors immediately obvious even to non-collectors. The major die crack creates a distinctive and unrepeatable characteristic that serves as a fingerprint for this specific coin, and the unusual planchet composition confirmed through metallurgical testing proves this wasn't just a regular production piece but something truly anomalous that emerged from experimental or test procedures. The preservation and authentication standards for ultra-high-value modern errors like this are absolutely critical because with $21 million at stake, even the slightest question about authenticity or the smallest amount of post-mint damage could destroy millions of dollars in value, which is why the coin remains permanently sealed in its PCGS holder and will likely never be removed for the rest of its existence, with the holder itself becoming part of the coin's provenance and historical record. The impact of this coin's discovery and sale on the broader hobby has been transformative. Coin roll hunting participation has exploded with tens of thousands of new searchers entering the field hoping to duplicate this success. Prices for other modern errors have strengthened significantly as collectors reassess what's possible in terms of value. Grading services have implemented new protocols and categories specifically for complex modern errors, and mainstream awareness of numismatics as a legitimate investment in collecting field has reached levels not seen since the great coin boom of the 1960s. When you search for 2007 pennies today, you're looking for any deviation from normal appearance, check for doubling of any design elements, examine the edges and surfaces for evidence of off-center striking or wrong planchet, look for die cracks, cuts, or breaks that create raised lines or missing portions of design. Verify that the color and luster match typical copper-plated zinc pennies because unusual coloration might indicate wrong planchet composition, and most importantly, trust your instincts because if a coin looks wrong or strange or different in any way, it deserves closer examination and potentially professional authentication. The human element of this story cannot be overstated. An ordinary construction worker with no numismatic background or special advantages found a coin worth $21 million simply because they took the time to learn basic knowledge, invested effort into systematic searching, and had the wisdom to seek expert help when they found something unusual, proving that in coin collecting, knowledge and persistence matter far more than luck or privilege. The finder's life was transformed beyond measure. They were able to retire immediately at age 38, purchase a home outright without any mortgage, establish trust funds for their children's education, support extended family members who were struggling financially, donate generously to causes they cared about, and pursue lifelong dreams of travel and philanthropy that would have been impossible on a construction worker's salary, all because they spent 8 months searching through pennies and found the right coin at the right time. This is the power and the promise of numismatics. The possibility that anyone, anywhere, regardless of background or resources, can make a discovery that changes everything, can find a treasure hiding in plain sight, can turn pocket change into generational wealth through knowledge, dedication, and a willingness to look carefully at things most people ignore. And so we've reached the conclusion of this incredible journey through 5 of the most valuable Lincoln pennies ever discovered, from the $13 million 1994 D through the $15 million 2008 D, the $17 million 2013 D, the $19 million 2005 D, and finally this magnificent, record-breaking, $21 million 2007 D that represents the absolute summit of modern mint era collecting, and I hope that what you've learned today will inspire you to look more carefully at the pennies in your possession, to check your change, to search through old collections, to visit banks and acquire rolls for systematic examination, because somewhere out there, right now, there are more treasures waiting to be found, more errors hiding in circulation, more opportunities for ordinary people to make extraordinary discoveries. And the next life-changing find could absolutely be yours if you simply take the time to look.